I have just been talking to Andy about a model that is emerging from the analysis of data in two research projects. In both projects, participants took part in pedagogical activities related to OSDE or through other eyes for more than 20 hours. We use post-structuralist and post-colonial theory to code and analyze participant responses, and the model that I will explain now is what is emerging from both sets of data. This model consists of three types of certainty and 7 stages. Certainty 1 is generally where people start if they are unaware of different perspectives. This is a stage of universalist certainties where people tend to project their own assumptions as universal. Certainty 2 happens when people refuse to go into a learning loop and get trapped in a repressive state due to constraints in their contexts. In this state, people get very defensive and the pedagogical process is disabled. We have coded both enabling and disabling responses related to this model, but today I'm not going to talk about certainty 2 or disabling responses. I will focus on the enabling responses and the 7 stages from certainty 1 to certainty 3. Certainty 3 is connected to the notions of contingency, provisional meaning, and relationality. This is the last stage of this model, and it is where people are better equipped to negotiate meaning and identities in diverse environments, and where they start relating to difference in a more responsive and dialogical way. If the first stage is universalism, or certainty 1, the second stage is a stage where you realize that there are contradictions in your own perspective, or what you did not know, you did not know. Here, you start to become aware of the assumptions and choices of your epistemology, of your way of knowing. Stage 3 is associated with traces. Here you become aware that what you think comes from somewhere, from the social groups you belong to. You learn that what you know has been socially and historically constructed, that things that you have taken as givens can actually be questioned, and then you have a choice there. An enabling response here would be, I've just realized that I think exactly like my mother. Stage 4 is related to the recognition and engagement with multiple perspectives. You start to become interested in other possibilities, but there's still the notion that by engaging with other perspectives, you will find an absolute or perfect answer that will work in every context. You realize that your perspective does not work, so there must be another perspective out there that works for everybody. Stage 5 is the stage where you realize that all these perspectives are problematic and context-dependent. You become aware that each perspective has emerged in response to a problem in a context, and that the solution proposed creates another problem. So, it's not just a matter of finding the perfect answer that will work in every context anymore. In this model, this is a moment of disempowerment where people tend to say, why are we doing this? If there are no right answers, why bother? This brief moment of paralysis is followed by stage 6, which is where you focus on contingency, on what's happening on the context around you, and you start to raise your level of analysis and to learn to live with complexity and uncertainty. But you're still not prepared or confident to participate in the negotiations in these different contexts. Perhaps here is where people take stock to raise their levels of analysis and to figure out what to do when they don't know what to do. Stage 7 is where you recognize that although there are no certainties of the type 1, you still have to act and make decisions in the different contexts where you participate in. So instead of relying on fixed meanings and identities, you start to negotiate provisional meanings in your own identities in dialogue with others. It is at this stage that you see difference, complexity, uncertainty, conflict, and fluidity as parts of your own subjectivity and part of the process of learning and relating to others, without the will to dominate others, to control outcomes, or to arrive at consensus. After reaching this stage for the first time, the learning process starts again as you move on to different contexts. But as you have already learned how to learn, it is much quicker after the first time. The question I'm grappling with at the moment, which Andy and I will discuss a bit later on, is whether stages 5 and 6 can be skipped. This is coming from the fact that in my area, the main criticism against OSDE and Through Other Eyes, or post-structuralism itself, is that it can create paralysis or a situation where everything goes and people are overwhelmed. Of course, those who put the critique on the table are thinking about the stages as endpoints, not stages in a process. They believe that people cannot act if there are no absolute certainties, or if there is too much complexity, or if everything is contingent. They do not believe there's life beyond paralysis or relativism. What this model proposes is that what lies beyond paralysis and relativism is better and more ethical relations. It is better practice. But instead of universal and absolute certainties, we have certainty 3, which is a provisional certainty where people are aware of situatedness, of relationality, and of fluid and negotiable subjectivities. Action at this stage is more responsible and responsive because in trying to act, I always have to consider other perspectives and the possibility that I could be wrong, that there are other possible ways of doing things. And at the same time, I have to be accountable for my reasoning and the implications of my actions. So it seems to me that if we could skip stages 5 and 6, people would not be afraid of this process. But if stages 5 and 6 are necessarily part of the process, then the question is, how can we better support people to complete those learning loops, maybe quicker? I'll now pass to Andy, who will read the same model using concepts from Deleuzean theory. Thank you.